Firearms training has evolved rapidly over the past decade. From red dot optics and shot timers to simulators to AI-assisted feedback, the modern shooter has access to more technology than ever before. But the big question is this: are we actually producing better shooters, or are we just making training more high-tech? Today, I'm joined by the lone operator lead instructor, Shalto Schoeman, as we unpack the future of firearms training, what's really changing, what's just hype, and what serious shooters should be focusing on in 2026 and beyond. Shalto, good morning. Welcome back to the channel.
Morning, Riaan. Thanks for having me back.
Always a pleasure. I enjoy our chats very much.
Yes.
So when you look at firearms training, or at the firearms training world, rather, if you look at it right now, are we actually getting better at training shooters, or are we just adding more tech to the same old fundamentals?
Yeah, Riaan, I think your basics, and I might be wrong, but I think your basics stay the same. You know, your grip, sight alignment, sight picture, trigger control, recoil management, your follow through, breathing, and the most important one that guys tend to forget is decision making. Okay, it's not a fundamental, but you can throw as much technology to that as what you want. But when the rubber hits the road and you're going to have to draw your firearm, it doesn't actually matter how fast you are or how good a shooter you are. You need to make a decision. Now, in my opinion, that's never going to change. Okay. I don't think there'll be technology towards it. Or there might be. You've got simulators and stuff. But yeah, those 7 fundamentals are never going to change. But I think in modern society, yes, like shot timers, they've take out the guessing work. We had it this weekend on the range where I did a draw and everybody went like, "Awesome, that sounded cool." And when we looked at the time, it was it wasn't that good, but it looked very great.
Yes.
Dry fire systems, yes, like the certs and stuff. For the viewers out there that don't know the certs, it's a laser with targets that you can dry fire without the expensive or the cost of ammunition. That sort of reinforces your draw stroke and your trigger prep and squeezing of the trigger. That improved immensely. I use that. Yeah, you've got some high-tech stuff with high-speed cameras that pick up the small little things. It's more for your competition guys. But I've seen results, and I've spoken to a couple of sport guys, sport shooters. They say, cameras and stuff have improved their shooting. Simulators, like I've mentioned, if you look at the FBI going into a scenario building, I truly believe that sort of conditions you on where to draw and when not to draw the firearm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great.
I want to look back at the last maybe 5 to 10 years and ask you this: what do you think has genuinely changed in firearms training? And I'm not talking only equipment, but very specifically also in the way people think about training.
Okay. So when I've mentioned the certs and stuff, and this actually gets me excited, the red dot targets, So what we battled with, and especially with close quarter battle, CQB, even CQC, close quarter combat, is we were focusing, and I'm talking out of an instructor's point of view, we wanted to get to the tactics and not specifically the shooting. So back in the day, we had to do a live fire exercise, which we still do, but then the tactics were lacking. So now I can go into a kill house with no live fire, okay, and only put up targets and then specifically focus on tactics. So in the instructor's point of view, and even for the student, you know, I think with a kill house built with red dots and simulation, you know, that gives a better perspective, or the outcome based of that tactical training is then better. If we look at red dots, yes, and I was a guy that fought this red dot thing. I was on iron sights the whole time. You know, this is, you're taking away the art of shooting, and you know, I was fighting it, and yeah, I, through stupidity, I messed up my Glock 17, and for shits and giggles, I then basically went to red dot. And as I drew that red dot, I'm much faster on the target. Okay. The distance that you can shoot with a red dot, you know, I can hit comfortable shots at 25 meters. With iron sights, it becomes a challenge. You know, so I think red dots is great. If we look at weapon mounted lights, you know, back in the day, military, you guys in the border, I don't think you had weapon mounted lights. You know, what is your take on that? But in the police force, we
We had
didn't have
hat
weapon
packs.
mounted lights. We had an old mag light, a big thing. Now we have weapon mounted lights, and it becomes much easier with that target, you know. So yeah, it's exciting stuff. Even if you take the appendix carry, the guys that are moving from the 3 o'clock to the appendix, you know, I hate it because I've got a little bit of a poopy, but the guys that are carrying appendix, they are much faster, in my opinion, than the 3 o'clock carry. So that's type of modern technology that's sort of exciting. You know?
So the
yeah.
mindset seems to be the technology is there, embrace it and see how it can improve me as a shooter.
Yeah, if we, you see, yeah, if we're talking about mindset specifically, Rian, that is lacking. And many experienced instructors are now basically also saying the same thing.
Okay.
That the mindset is lacking, and I don't think our audience or our students understand, what do you mean about mindset? You know, I'm drawing faster, I'm faster on target. You know, I am a better shooter. Yes, you are, but in reality, it's not about drawing fast. It's not about shooting fast. It's about consequences. It's about making that decision to fire. And that, with inexperienced instructors, they rely, in my opinion, too much on the technology. And we basically losing that track of what is reality, what is actually going to happen, and then teaching that student to make that decision under pressure, because you're going to be faced with questions, you know, that is going to happen split second, that I'm going to have to face, you know, like example, is this an actual threat? Okay, who's the enemy? Okay, because now everybody have badges and they say I'm the good guy. No, you know, who's the enemy? Who do I shoot? And that's very difficult to do that. You know, is there innocent bystanders? Okay, is there a block of let's say this is the bad guy, I've identified him, but there's innocent civilians or children behind that target. What do I do under stress?
How do you
That
address
becomes difficult.
that?
Well, you're gonna have to have training. Like we mentioned in
training?
the previous examples, you know,
Mm.
we're gonna have to take you through from the basics and then slowly but surely build you up to that sort of level, you know. But that in itself takes time. So
So yeah, it's a process.
it's a process, yes. And I get the feeling that modern students don't want the process. And I don't know if we're going to get around this, but
Is,
time will tell. But I
isn't
think
that
students don't want the process. They see fast and accurate shooting, yeah, and it's entertaining for 10 seconds, and then you know that sells courses.
isn't that
But
the as a direct result of like social media, for instance, where we get fed all these basically instant solutions so that people
yeah,
start expecting the same. You know, I'm going to go to the shooting
yeah,
range once and then I'm going to shoot like this guy type of thing.
yeah.
So,
And what they tend to forget is, I'm going to give you the honest truth here, is
mm,
like your top instructors, you know, that's 2,000 rounds a month.
mm,
And that's just like entry level for shooting well. You know, I know about instructors that shoot 4,000 rounds a
okay.
month, you know, and that's expensive, you know.
Mm,
So now, look, I get it. It sells courses. Modern day students tend to go to that guy because they shoot fast. And I'm guilty. I'm not saying that I'm not, Rian. I also tend to believe that there should be a balance between skill of the instructor and then also practical capabilities or teaching methods. You know, what have you done in the real life and your skill. There should be a balance.
mm,
But I feel, and like I said, I'm also guilty because I'm also chasing speed. I'm also chasing accuracy, and I'm also chasing what I can do. But I feel deep in my heart that we are forgetting what actually happens in real life. What we actually need to teach the student is there's consequences of firing that round. There's decision making that I need to do under the pressure. And I don't think instructors or modern day instructors that haven't seen that type of or haven't been in that environment are lacking. And now we justifying that through technology, and we tend to forget what we actually need to teach a student of you know, accountability, what it's like to make that decision. What do I look for? Can I
so
escape this situation?
do you think, because everybody seems to be talking about mindset and decision making and stress management nowadays.
Mm.
They've become quite the buzzwords. Uh, um, as the mental side of self-defense become even more important than pure marksmanship, do you think it's as a result of the I mean, people have always been held accountable for you know making bad decisions with a firearm. That's not new.
Mm.
But do you think the metal, is it just because there is more of an emphasis on it now, that it seems to have become even more important than pure marksmanship, or is the ideal scenario a good combination of all of these factors?
It's a combination. So um, if we being brutally honest, yeah, social media is sort of setting the trend. Why? Because it gets views. You know, it's entertaining. I also look at it and say, geez, that guy's fast. Let's see if I can do it. So it's fast, it's aggressive, it's visually impressive, like I've mentioned, and that's everything in a video clip is what, 10 seconds,
Hmm.
7 seconds, you know, but the reality is, are we teaching the student threat identification, communication? You know, is it necessary to engage? Can I verbally de-escalate the situation? Are we teaching that? Decision making, you know, am I drawing? Am I not drawing? Am I exiting this battle? You know, like we mentioned in the previous videos as well, there's legal implications to this. Moving with purpose, are we teaching that? And I'm sure a lot of instructors are teaching movement with purpose. But yeah, those are the most important things that I think. Managing our unknown environment. And then a real thing that sort of comes to my brain and what I'm worried about is a 5-second clip of something similar that's hitting steel at 3 meters gets views, but a 10-minute explanation about use of force decision doesn't. You know, so
Yes. So
yeah,
trends, training trends, because that's social media for you, because, you know, it really
yeah,
brings on or brings out those training trends. And the, you know, something comes out and it explodes. It's all over the place. So do you think some instructors are starting to design training around what looks good online rather than what actually works in real life? So they're chasing the trends because that gets some students. Is there a danger that shooters and even instructors then start chasing these trends instead of focusing more on mastering the fundamentals of shooting?
yes, absolutely. I think we are, and I'm saying we because I am guilty. We are chasing that views, because the more views and the more likes I get and the more people following me, obviously I'm growing my audience, and I'm also growing my business. But yeah, that is sort of setting the trend, and we are losing. Um, I'm talking about the tactical world now, or the defensive shooting is a better word. Tactical is overused, in my opinion. Defensive shooting, we are losing that capability because, and if I say capability, I mean this. If a fast shooter can draw his firearm in immense seconds, I've seen a 0.5 second draw and shot on target in 0.8 of a second, accurate shots. But a fast shooter can lose a battle um, by by not even drawing his firearm because he won't be able to make that decision of firing. I've seen even in the Krav Maga martial art world, um, you know, guys freeze up in a real situation. So on the range where there's no stress, okay, and yes, we add stress and stuff like that, and we build you up, but the real world still determines what you're going to do in that scenario. So I've haven't seen it, but I imagine that a guy can lose that battle. I don't know if you agree
But,
with me.
well, no, I mean, it can be something as simple as overconfidence,
Yeah,
which can bite you in the backside if the stress is really on. And the only way you can start balancing that out is through proper stress inoculation in, you know, in a training environment over time, because only doing it once isn't going to do the trick, I don't think. So I want to ask you, before I move on to gear and stuff again, uh, just the last point on this. You've now mentioned the fact that it is happening. People are chasing trends. Students are chasing it. Some instructors are chasing it. I mean, it's almost inevitable. It's going to happen. That's the influence and power of social media. So when it comes to lone operator and the training that lone operator provides, How does lone operator ensure that these training trends do not become the modus operandi of the training and that you stick to getting the basics sorted so that students can really learn how to shoot and handle their firearms and be proficient with them under stress situations. So how does lone operator differ from the scenario that we've just talked about? What do you do that's different that makes you stand out from that?
Oh, yes. So I've seen through our media content, and that's also a risk that Dion, myself, and all the main instructor or lead instructors are concerned of is that we sort of see that our training is filtering through to the other guys. For instance, the plucky shoots.
Mm.
That's at 3 meters that we shoot a small little plucky. I don't think the other instructors know about this, and I'm not going to mention this online, but there's a reason why we shoot that plucky.
Mm.
Okay, so that has become a sort of standard in the instructor realm or in the courses of fire.
Mm.
But what makes us unique is that we sort of stick to our plan in defensive shooting. We start you off with the basics. We start off with shooting positions, fire and movement, go through all that basics. Okay. But I think what is our success or our recipe is that you'll have a level 2 um, group shooting and firing and moving and doing that everything under stress, and then you'll have on range 1 you'll have a group that's doing fundamentals. So what's the benefit of that is that your fundamental guys are hearing the senior instructor shout and putting the guys under pressure, and there's smoke and whistles going, so they see where this is moving to. Where I think we're in isolation with other instructors where we're only teaching this for the day, it's sort of, you can't see where you're moving to. Yes, and then also our people, students and instructors are very seasoned. We've got military guys, we've got police guys, we've got advocates in law and stuff, giving us guidance and stuff. So, we're very blessed and fortunate with those sort of people adding to our recipe. So yeah,
Okay,
that's what makes us successful.
let's jump to gear.
Yes.
Shooters nowadays, I mean, they've got access to pretty amazing gear. There's optics and there's different lights and there's compensators and there's specialized holsters and everything. Is technology actually genuinely making shooters better, or is it just making training look more sophisticated? In other words, is there a risk that equipment is starting to mask weak fundamentals?
Yes. Let me double think that. Yes. Okay. So let's say the reason why I'm saying that is, and it's all good. I like the red dots. I like the equipment that's coming through, the weapon mounted lights. It's all benefiting to you surviving that awful encounter maybe one day. Okay. But I also feel that, and I've seen this happen on the range, where people are putting on red dots, um, and they're shooting crap with iron sights. So there is in my opinion, and it might also be that I'm getting older in the game, is that your iron sight has a fundamental value of lining up your sights, squeezing the trigger, and hitting the target. So, like my son, to give you an example, is he wants to switch over to iron sights, and I'm basically smiling and say, "Well, do you have 15K?" And he's, "Well, that's the most expensive one. You can get them now for 7K or something like that. And I'm laughing and I'm saying, well, you don't have the money. And number two is I don't want you shooting red dots until you understand the basics. So coming back to your question is, I think guys that are not good with their fundamentals are switching over to red dot, and it's getting easier. So now, am I a better shooter, or am I overly focused on that red dot? And what if that fails? You know,
So
so I think the confidence
what
on
are
that,
the core fundamentals of shooting and self-defense that will never change, irrespective of any technology? And I want to add to that, how do you match the two, that you can go the technology route, because I mean that's happening. New tech comes out, people kick against it, but then they start adapting, and pretty soon that's where it's at. That's where everybody goes to. So how do you adapt that into still being good at and ensuring that you build up the core fundamentals of shooting, that you remain a good shooter? So you're a good shooter using technology to assist you. You're not relying on technology to make you look better than what you really are, if that makes sense.
yeah. So yeah, that's a good point. You know, relying on technology to enhance your shooting, not making you a better shooter. But to
Yes.
answer your question, what will never change in my mind is awareness and decision making. That's never going to change. You know, your 7 fundamentals, your fundamentals of shooting, never going to change. But the most important thing is awareness and decision making. Threat, recognizing the threat coming. You know, I'm talking about defensive shooting here, not sport shooting. That is a thing that's never going to change, and you're going to have instructors that have knowledge of this and how to teach them. You know, how to teach them, how to teach your student. You know, so there's, I don't know if you know, but the loan operator program is to become an instructor, you're going to have to go through all of our training. Module 1, that's 12 modules. Module 2, that's 12 modules. Module 3, that's 12 modules. And then we sort of just earmark you, yeah, you're a good instructor. Then you're going to, or not a good instructor, you're a good student. Now you have an apprenticeship with us. You know, now you're just walking around and plucking everything and putting up a piece of paper. This is a 4-year process, you know. So by the time you get to instructor, just in loan operator, you've got 5 years under your belt, and also listening to the seasoned guys explaining this, you know, explaining the scenarios, explaining the threat recognition, situational awareness, you know, willing to act on decisions. How do I transfer that to the student? That becomes a task. You're not going to step out of a rookie school or become an instructor in 6 months and explain this to a student that's going to take a firearm and defend himself in 6 months. You're foolish if you think that, you know. Stress management under pressure. When do I put pressure on? When do I put pressure off? Because you can hurt a student and he'll never come back to you. You know, so your instructor is vital in this whole scenario, you know. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question in this.
Maybe for the viewers' sake, just can you maybe just quickly run over the core fundamentals of shooting itself?
The core fundamentals of shooting, there's 7. There's stance, there's grip, sight alignment, sight picture, trigger squeeze, follow through, and breathing. Those are the 7. But I tend to also, in the whole process, we don't do that on day 1, but through the course, there should be a 8 fundamental, and the 8 fundamental is that decision making. When do I pull the trigger? And is it necessary to pull that trigger?
Mm.
You know, because a lot of times we like I've just mentioned, we go through year 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so if you take that 3 years of training, that's a degree in weapons. Now, don't get weapon fixated. Okay, so I don't need to use this weapon. I have an option. I can de-escalate or I can walk away. And that is normally your best decision. But I need to recognize, and this is where people get this whole thing wrong. I need to recognize when I am in a situation that is going to escalate and recognize that situation and maybe even walk away before it has begun. And that's only going to come through in your years of training and through experienced instructors teaching that fundamentals.
So skip the whole idea of I'm going to the range 1 or 2 times and then I'm going to be hot as oil in a frying pan. You need to understand that it's a process. If you want to master the fundamentals, and become a really, a good shooter who is very at ease with the whole handling of the firearm thing, etc., then it's going to take you time, and it's going to take some effort, and it's going to take some energy, and it's going to take dry firing on a regular basis, because you can't, not many people can be on the range on a daily basis, even if you just reload and use reloads for
I'm glad you mentioned dry firing, Rian, and I think that a lot of students are totally underestimating the value of dry fire. Like I'm a keen shotgun instructor, so that's my favorite platform by far, except my handgun. But, I can make you very proficient with a shotgun with dummy rounds. Target transitions, if you go to handgun, that I do with dry firing, so that you don't need to spend a lot of money on 2,000 rounds a month. You can become very proficient just by dry firing. The discipline side of this whole thing becomes a problem, because it's not very nice and sexy to pew, pew, pew there in the air, and that sort of thing. It becomes boring. And I'm talking about experience because it's boring for me. But in my mind, I need to touch my weapon every single day for minimum, and it can be more, it can be less, depending on the shooter. But for me, 20 minutes a day. And yeah, sometimes I do fail. Life gets in the way,
Sure.
but I tend to want to touch my firearm for 20 minutes a day doing dry fire. But it's very underrated and undervalued.
It doesn't sound right, though, if you say you want to touch your firearm. Can we rather say you wanna handle it and practice with it?
That's the better word. Thank you for that. That sounds more professional.
I just wanted to say that. So, Shaltu, last but not least,
Yes.
for anybody who's either watching this on YouTube or listening to it on Spotify, who is really keen and serious about improving their ability to defend themselves with a firearm, just give us like a short 60-second overview of what you think they should actually focus on in their training, preferably something that will outlast all the trends that we've mentioned earlier in the conversation.
Okay. All right. So it goes without saying, but safe gun handling, non-negotiable. Finger off trigger always. Unload. Check 1, check 2, wherever you are. That is a fundamental. Fundamentals of marksmanship. There are 7. I've mentioned them. Those are the basics. Get that done and truly understand that before we move on to more difficult stuff like tactical training or more advanced defensive shooting. shooting under time and stress. Okay, as we move on from there, I need some stress to truly understand combat situation and what I'm going to be facing. And then, very important is the decision of when am I going to fire and when I'm not going to fire. And that sounds very basic and it sounds very easy to do. When I put a scenario together, like we do with Lone Operator, we blindfold the guy, and then all of a sudden we just pull off that blindfold and say, shoot all the red targets. And then there's a hell of confusion coming around because now instructors, and this is advanced courses, but now instructors are blowing whistles and they are shouting at you. And, you know, I'm at the back saying, shoot that red target, but I might be pointing at a blue target. I want you to make that decision under that stress. But listen, I can't listen to this guy because I'm accountable for that round, you know. Situational awareness. I know everybody talks about Cooper's color coding and the OODA loop. It all goes for ball of, hey, if that situation or that theory is actually tested. So you're going to have to.
What about legal knowledge?
Yes, there's a big lack of that, Rian. And again, we're very fortunate at Lone Operator because we've got advocates and lawyers helping us with that. You know, so where the instructor is sometimes, and it does happen, where we have a perception of the law. I'm talking about instructors, and it's happened to me before. But I think if you're a seasoned instructor and somebody or a student is basically, and it's a building up conversation, not breaking down conversation, and you have insight into that law part of things and get the perspective of the attorney or the advocate and bring clarity to it, you know. Yeah, but there's a big lack of on the legal side of things. But join a club,
and that's problematic. I see, because there's a
yes.
there's a severe in some cases a lack of knowledge, but in a lot of cases I think there's confusion. It's the law, you know. It's not. It's the speciality of lawyers and attorneys. So just for the viewers, there is a series on the channel called Legal Talk with Francois, where we discuss firearms related legal matters in more detail. So I think it's vital, over and above the practice, the dry firing, being on a range, all of those things, doing training, doing more training is also increasing your knowledge. You don't have to be an attorney with that level of knowledge, but you can definitely step up from being uncertain and not knowing anything. But that's up to you. All of this is up to you. Shalto, I'm going to end it there if you don't have anything to add to that.
All that I want to add is dry fire. You know, but yeah, I think we've emphasized the dry fire part.
Crucial.
So, but thank you, Rian. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure speaking to you.
Absolutely. Technology will continue to evolve. New gear will always keep on appearing, and training trends, those will come and go. But the fundamentals, skill, mindset, decision-making, those remains. Nothing changes that. So the real question is, are we building capability, or are we just chasing the next trend? If you like the video, please click on the like button. Please subscribe to the channel, and please smash that bell icon so that you can get notifications of new videos coming out. And if you are interested in any of the training offered by Fortis and the Lone Operator, there's always a link in the description below the video. Check it out. We look forward to seeing you on a shooting range one of these days. Shalto, that is it. Thank you so much for sharing some time with us and some of your knowledge and expertise. Highly appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure. Enjoy your day, Rian.